Welcome back, ladies and gents. On today's show, the Durango gets a Hellcat, builders get a Godzilla, and a Cobra with AC current. Plus, a dad builds his kid an amazing time machine. I'm Tiffany Stone, and this is Hagerty's Daily Driver. Let's buckle up. Earlier this week, we told you that SRT would be celebrating the 4th of July with almost 9,000 horsepower. And we've got our first clue as to how they're going to do it. An SRT Hellcat Dodge Durango. Now, according to Auto Evolution, these leaked photos came from Instagram user Wheel Surgeon, and they show the Durango sporting a big racing stripe, Chrysler's new Uconnect system, and most importantly, the Hellcat Kitty logo. Because this is a leak, we don't have many details, but here are some things that we can assume. First, it'll have the same 707 horsepower, supercharged 6.2-liter V8 found in all of the other SRT Hellcats. Secondly, it'll come in cheaper than the more luxury-oriented Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk. And finally, it'll probably be the fastest three-row SUV on the planet because, frankly, no one else is crazy enough to make a factory 700 plus horsepower three-row SUV. Now, you could argue that this is FCA yet again, trying to make people care about an aging lineup by stuffing a big engine into a random car, and technically, you would be right. But technically, if you're making this argument, that's no fun. So Dodge fans, don't complain that they put a Hellcat in the Durango. Complain that they haven't put a Hellcat in the Journey. And speaking of big motors, I've got some more good news. Ford will now sell you their 7.3-liter V8 directly. That's right, you can take Godzilla home with you. In 2019, this gas monster replaced the 6.8-liter V10 that Ford built forever. Now, this new engine makes 430 horsepower, 475 pound-feet of torque. You probably think it's gigantic, well, because of its name, but it's actually 6 inches narrower than the Mustang's 5-liter V8. Ford did this by putting the cam in the block. And not only is it narrower than the Coyote engine, it's also cheaper. So, if you have a project car or a bus or anything else, this might be the engine for you. And lastly, when you think of a 1960s AC Cobra, I bet you don't think of an electric car. Well, prepare to, because AC is building 116 Cobras to celebrate the snake's 58th birthday, and half of those will be electric. In 1953, British car company AC built a shapely roadster called the Ace. 8 years later, Carroll Shelby put a V8 in it, and the rest is history. As we reported, these electric models will get a 308 horsepower electric motor. With the full charge, they'll hit 60 miles per hour in what's a nice way to say this? Sentra smoking 6.7 seconds. And I know you guys are laughing at me. Gas-powered models get Ford's 2.3-liter EcoBoost motor and hit 60 slightly faster. They cost about $171,000 and $105,000 respectively. Sure, a new Camry is quicker, but I guess it's not always about speed. Now, speaking of cashing in on nostalgia, we found the best dad in the world. But first.
Whoa, yeah.
911 Turbo. How fast you think he was going?
About 100.
How quick are they?
0 to 60, about 5 seconds.
How quick's your Daytona?
About 7.
You mean that guy spent 70 grand for an extra 2 seconds? What are you gonna do with 2 seconds?
Traffic school.
Parents will do just about anything for their children, but that usually doesn't include cutting up their prized automobile. Well, as Hagerty reported, John Miller isn't most parents. When his 6-year-old son, Evan, watched Back to the Future, he asked his dad to turn the family's DeLorean into a time machine. At first, John said no, but he kept thinking about it. A year later, in 2016, John took his family to a film festival, and wouldn't you know it, there was a DeLorean time machine on display. Evan said, "Dad, we have to build a time machine." And so they started building. John is a mechanic by trade, but building a time machine isn't exactly in the DeLorean manual, although it probably should be. Though he didn't know how much homework, research, and parts hunting that was ahead of him. Soon he was at junkyards, inside old computers, and flying across the country to visit the very aerospace supply warehouse they used to build the real movie car. So, how did it turn out? Good enough for Universal Studios to rent the car for a movie premiere. If you'd like some more information on this amazing time machine, head over to Hagerty to read the whole story or click the link in the description below. And if you've done a project car with your parent or kid and you are proud of it, let us know in the comments. That's all for this week, but I'll be back next week with more car news. Have an amazing 4th of July and keep driving.